John, Newby Savage Ventures. So, John, yesterday Cleetus was in here talking about or Cleetus McFarland, the YouTuber, is talking about how fans are starved for behind-the-scenes content with competition side, all that stuff. How aware is NASCAR and Netflix, by extension, of those desires from the fans when they're kind of planning the different storylines to cover?
Yeah, I mean, you've got to, we're focused on the 2024 playoffs. So, we need to build the narratives ultimately around that and drivers and teams that are in the playoffs. So you start to think who's already in, as you're planning over the course of the spring and summer, and you can start to establish, okay, what can we do that maybe is different from season one, fresh from season one? We knew Ryan would be there and others like Joey. But then there was a chance to get to know some new characters. Harrison Burton, and he won dramatically, as you well remember, right before the playoffs started at Daytona. It's a great scene with Harrison, his father calling the race. And then you also see Harrison away from the track, and you see him trying to break through, trying to, make it past the first round in the playoffs, and how his dad's, trying to help him, but also saying, hey, if you don't make it, you don't make it. So, Chase Briscoe was another new character we got to focus on in season 2. He and his wife, Marissa, were expecting twins at the time. So, again, to let us in on such a personal time for them, she gave birth during the playoffs, was pretty extraordinary. So, between Chase and Harrison, and then you've got more established characters from season 1 like Ryan and Joey and Daniel Suarez. I think we get to know him better, and Julia Piquet, his wife, as well. So it's a mix. You look for some fresh storylines, some new paths in, but you've also got your great characters like Ryan that you just keep going along for the ride.
The race car driver known as Cleetus McFarland, as John just mentioned, he was in here yesterday, and he was talking about how much there is to do that drivers can do in the garage for themselves, for social media and content. You've got this, and that's giving fans access to you through this. But do you ever think about or look around like, hey, I can also be opening myself on my own channels? There's things that fans want to see me doing at the track that I can be delivering in the minute.
Yeah, it's a good point. It's always like, what can you do, right? And I think people are always trying to find ways to do that. I've always had like a love-hate thing with social media. And I guess my thing on that is like, I try to give the fans at the track an experience as opposed to people just watching it, that are not at the racetrack. So I mean, after qualifying, I signed at the fence for an hour, after qualifying with everybody in that building there that has access to the garages, and just like trying to focus all your energy on that and not have to like do skits. Yeah, and I've always tried to not be like, have my phone out recording, hey, look at me, look what I'm doing, I'm such a nice, cool guy. I just want to try to do it in person and in the most authentic way you can, and that's just kind of always the way I've been. I mean, guys have done it a different way, and that's just the way they are. But me personally, I've just tried to, when I'm at track, I try to give the people there the experience and not have to make it seem like, hey, I'm only doing this just because there's a camera on, right? I'm just trying to do this. Thank you for being here. Spend time with everybody. And that's just the way I've always approached it, and that's what I'm comfortable with. But, there's other ways to do it, too, and everyone's a little different.
Ray Akers with Skyview Sports. In this kind of like a NASCAR under the hood project, was there any influence at all from someone like Mr. McFarland yesterday? I mean, looking at this project here where you see the influence, and also NASCAR is really trying to reach the younger people. Is there some of that influence in this project as well?
Well, look, I definitely saw the interest that Cleetus McFarland draws at Daytona, and some of the things we did, like an in-car camera at Daytona, like had hundreds of thousands of views. So he has a serious following that must be respected and appreciated. I think, look, access is kind of the name of the game with a series like this. Ultimately, you do it because you want people to care more about your teams, about your drivers. And they're going to care if they get to know them better. So, we've got the hardcore fans. Certainly, they want the races. They're going to, they're going to get into that. and they're going to care about the drivers just because they're in their favorite car or they just like that driver, but to bring in more casual fans, to bring in people who can be entertained not just by, the results of the race. You've got to do something like this. You've got to give them access, and you've got to go into their lives. You've got to be willing to give that access if you're the driver and the teams, and you've got to be willing to dive into it if you're producing it like we are. And I think the result is maybe you see us, Daniel's story with Julia, with his father. You care more now. When he's racing at Talladega, you're pulling for him a little bit because you see what a great guy Daniel is, or you pull for Joey because you just love his attitude and spirit and how he was unapologetic when he got back into the playoffs when the Alex Bowman disqualification happened. So you're given more reasons to care. And we've got to give people reasons to care and get invested in NASCAR.